Hello everybody, my name is Daulton Nelson, and today I'd like to give my thoughts on a game I just beat, that game being Mega Man 4 for the PS4. Mega Man 4 was developed and published by Capcom, and it is an action platformer. This is the fourth Mega Man game I've played thus far. I enjoyed playing through the original Mega Man, but I really loved playing through Mega Man 2. However, Mega Man 3 took a huge dip in quality for me, bringing forth one of the most frustrating video game experiences I've had all year. I've heard that Mega Man 4 was when the franchise starts to dip in quality, so I did not have high expectations going into this one. And playing through it, I felt kind of middle of the road about it. I didn't really hate it or like it, so let's get into what sets Mega Man 4 apart from the other three. First, there is the Mega Buster mechanic, which is considered controversial within the Mega Man community. What it is that instead of just shooting like normal, you hold the button to charge a kind of super shot that, when released, will deal a more high-damaging shot. Fans have argued that this has made the Mega Man experience easier. I personally did not experience any sort of change in difficulty within my experience. The Mega Buster did not make the game either easier or harder, so I don't really think it deserves the bad rap it gets among fans. The Mega Buster doesn't make the game easier at all, it keeps it the same difficulty throughout, within my opinion. Also, I am very surprised how the team at Capcom has continued to evolve their graphical prowess by making even more colorful and life-filled environments and enemy designs. This game looks beautiful for a Nintendo Entertainment System game. Also, unlike Mega Man 3, Mega Man 4 actually has a clear story this time, one that is very easy to follow. It's basically the same story as the very first two games, where you have an evil doctor who has set loose 8 evil robots, and you as Mega Man have to go out there and destroy those robots and stop the evil doctor. It is pretty cool to see the team try something new within this new antagonist. Finally, I think the team of Mega Man 4 here got really creative with what they were doing in this game. There were a lot of very cool ideas on paper. For example, these rainbow bridges that when you stood on them they would disappear under your feet. There was also some wind physics and some snow physics. That is very cool to see within a NES experience. And finally, the team implemented some hidden pathways where you can get some hidden upgrades. For example, there's this wire that is very reminiscent of the arm within Bionic Commando, where you would shoot out this extending mech arm you can hurl yourself to the point that you attached to. So it's really cool ideas on paper. However, and this is getting into the problems that I had with the game, I would describe Mega Man 4 as the worst amalgamation of good ideas I've ever seen in a video game. Because for all of the good ideas that they have, they do some really dumb things with them, or there are some other dumb design decisions carried over from 3 that really bogged this game down. For example, I mentioned the wind and the snow physics, which are very impressive on their own, given that it's on the NES. However, implemented here in a platforming experience, especially one as difficult as Mega Man, makes the game even more frustrating, especially when you have to battle against these mechanics. I also did not like design decisions like the little enemies that came out of the bottomless pits at such a high rate that it was almost impossible not to get hit and then plunge right down into these bottomless pits and die immediately. There would also be these behaviors that would trigger as soon as you were right up on them, like these rocks that I think are in Dustman's stage, where they won't even fall down until you're right up on where they should fall down, and thus you're not really preparing your player for this new mechanic that you're introducing. Finally, one of the things that really angered me is that they carried over some enemies that just stay close to Mega Man. Like in this game, they take the form of these little ladybug-esque helicopter robots that just stay close to you, and you can't really hit them as they swarm you. Another thing that really bogged down my experience with Mega Man 4 was the harder bosses within this game. Now, if you remember from my Mega Man 1 review, I did want harder bosses in terms of using the weapon powers against the bosses. And that's what I get here, and I very much enjoy that. However, the bosses are also harder from just a normal standpoint. It's very hard to defeat any boss right away, and they take very minimal damage from your Mega Buster. This is very frustrating and makes the game almost seem impossible at first. There are also bosses within this Mega Man that are very difficult to deal with, like Dive Man, who likes to stay close to you and has these missiles that will track you as you move, or Ring Man, who throws these rings at such a high pace that it's very hard not to get hit. And as you imagine, once you get to the boss gauntlet portion of this Mega Man, it is very hard to clear. I personally could not clear it without having to use E-Tanks. Mega Man 4 also brought a problem to light that I had within the previous games, but I didn't really feel like I needed to bring it up until this game, which is that with each new weapon type you get that weapon energy, right? That once you use the weapon, you spend some of the energy until it depletes to 0, which then you can't use that weapon anymore. The problem with this game comes that when you die, you still don't have that energy, it doesn't replenish or anything, and there's nothing to help you replenish it. Especially if you picked up an ammunition object in the stage prior, it will not show up again until you get a game over. And thus, if you're fighting a boss and you deplete all of your weapon or most of your weapon within your previous life, but you couldn't quite beat them that time, then it's almost pretty much impossible to beat them the next time through because you don't have that weapon that they're weak to. So it would be nice to at least have some energy from the previous life come back over into your new life, or something like that. And in terms of smaller things that I had problems with within Mega Man 4, I thought that this was the first Mega Man that had a fairly okay soundtrack, nothing to really think about beyond the game itself. And I know it's annoying at this point, I still don't like how the weapon selection flows throughout Mega Man. It still feels pretty flow breaking, if that makes any sense. It doesn't feel natural or fluid still. Although I do like their overhaul of the menu system. It actually looks really, really nice this time around. So overall, I think that Mega Man 4 has some really creative attributes to it, while also having some very frustrating attributes to it as well. And I feel like both of those balance each other out to create a very middle-of-the-road experience. I definitely had a better time playing through Mega Man 4 than I did Mega Man 3, however. So I would give Mega Man 4 a final rating of a 5 out of 10. It's not as frustrating to play through as Mega Man 3, so I would definitely recommend this to those who are trying to go through the entire series like I am. But I'm still not back to completely enjoying the Mega Man experience like those very first two games. So that concludes this review of Mega Man 4. If you like my reviews, you can like, comment, or subscribe. I also have social media links down in the description below. I also have a link to my online portfolio so you can see game design works that I've done. And with that out of the way, please make sure to have a nice day.